We should take that up. So it was beautiful. And as Charlene kicked us off last week, we're in a new month of October for our themes, which is spiritual in action this year. And the principle, the social action principle that we're talking about this whole month is cherish the human family. We like the Huma family, but the human family, and our value is unity. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about our book of the month, which is The Principle of Oneness by Anthony Gibb, and this idea of oneness and how that works in our philosophy. And this my talk today is kind of a revisit of a presentation I gave at the ministers' gathering, which I think is an important conversation for us to be having. So the principle of oneness has some aspects to it. We obviously know it because we've been talking about it. We talk about it all the time, this idea of a divine energy that moves through all things and moves through us. And Anthony Gibbs has some very specific ideas that he talks about. And the principles of oneness that I want to just highlight right now is this idea that everything is a field of energy. Everything is a field of energy. And this field of energy is known as the universe, or as God. We might call it spirit. Energy, love, we call it love with a capital L. So this field of energy is known as this idea of this universal presence or spirit or God or energy. And that all energy and matter is identical at its subatomic core, which is so powerful, right? We're all actually the same at the very depth of our nature, at the subatomic core. It's identical. And that everything has a degree of consciousness. So if it's all God, it's all universal energy, that we're all the same, and there's some type of consciousness that is within all things. And so depending on the vibration of it, this consciousness is made known at a higher level. So the rock has consciousness, and we have consciousness as well. And that collective consciousness controls and manifests everything. So that collective consciousness within us manifests and controls the manifestation through our thoughts, through our beliefs, through our actions. And that this universal energy field is in a constant state of change. So it's changing forms, it's still the same at its subatomic level, but the expression of it changes. And we know this simply from water, right? So water has that same form, but it changes as it freezes into ice, as it vaporizes when it's heated, as it comes down as sleet or snow. I mean, it's all different forms. It's changing, but it's the same underneath it all. And so how we express and value this oneness changes as well. It's this constant evolution. And we see this throughout history. And this idea that we move from an individual expression of value of this oneness to a collective expression of oneness. And so Don Beck and Chris Cowens, who created Spiral Dynamics, talks about it this way. He says, there's a theory that history moves in cycles, but like a spiral staircase, when the course of human events comes full circle, it does so at a new level. It's this idea that evolution is in this upward spiral, and it continues and creates as we move through this spiral. And it occurs at every level of our human psyche as well. We know this, that when we're born, we have an individual expression of this oneness, that we don't know we're separate from anything. Everything is part of us, right? And then as we get a little older, about 2 years old, we start realizing, hey, I've got some power, and I'm an individual, and we start moving away from that collective expression. And then we move into our childhood, and we start going to school, and we start realizing what our collective experience is, what our part is in the collective experience, how we get along, and what are our values that we teach our children to be part of, an active part of society. But of course, if you have teenagers, you know that it swings back around to that individual level. So, yep, I'm a part of this society, but who am I? How do I want to get out into the world? And I have the individual expression, and then it goes back around again to then being, I guess, a contributing member of society as it goes into work and family. And so you see this evolutionary on an individual basis, but this happens culturally too. It happens from a cultural place of thousands and thousands of years ago with this collective expression to individual expression to back to collective expression as we move and we go on. We see it in the survival of the fittest, this individual expression, moving into a tribal experience of that we protect our own, and so there's this whole process that we go about. And the thing that's so just really cool about this in many ways, but is also part of the challenge, is that it used to take hundreds of thousands of years to move around that spiral from that value of oneness to the collective expression of it. And then it took 5,000 years, then it took 1,000 years, and now it's like 50 to 35 years. You can see this change, this individual expression from individual to collective to individual again. And Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, the philosophy, he started talking about our philosophy at one of these pivotal spiral changes. It was moving from a collective expression to an individual. And we know this, right? When a lot of people come into our philosophy have come from a more traditional background. It's very hierarchical. There's a God out there that tells us what to do. We have rules that we have to follow. There is an organization. We have laws and expectations of how we're supposed to act and who we're supposed to marry and how, all those things. And then about 50 years ago or so, it began to become this more collective idea individual idea, where all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm an individual. And Dr. Holmes came into this and he started saying, yes, there's not this God that's a hierarchical God that's watching over you and telling you what you should do or shouldn't do. There's not these rules, that there is an individual expression of that divine. You don't have to have a go-between. You have this expression within you. And it's empowering. It's this individual empowerment. And all of us that come into this teaching have that experience, right? That all of a sudden you realize, if you haven't had this as a foundation of your life, that, wow, I have this power within me to create my life. I have this access to that divine expression. I'm able to express that and be empowered, and it's about self-love and connection. And this is a powerful thing. Matter of fact, Dr. Holmes talks about this in the very first page of Our Science of Mind, the textbook. The very first page, it's not even at the contents yet, it's the very first page. He writes, "These lessons are dedicated to the truth which frees us from ourselves and sets us on the pathway of a new experience, which enables us to see through the mists to the eternal and changeless reality." It's a powerful truth. This is about freeing ourselves from this idea of ourselves to find that eternal and changeless reality within. So even though the expressions of this oneness energy changes, there's an eternal reality that doesn't change. It's all we are. And this is an empowering idea. And this is the idea of oneness in that individual expression. So our Declaration of Principles lays this out so beautifully, which the Declaration of Principles was based on Dr. Ernest Holmes' writing. He wrote What I Believe, and we've turned it into What We Believe. And it is a declaration of this individual empowerment. It talks about one God. I believe in a God, the living, almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existing cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God, is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. It's very much a personal self-knowingness of the divine, personal immortality. I believe in the eternality, the immortality, the continuity of the individual soul, forever, ever, and expanding. Talks about personal freedom. I believe that the ultimate goal of life is to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all, talks about the personification of God. I believe that God is a personal to all who feel this indwelling presence, a very personal experience of God. Personal revelation. I believe in the divine revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of humanity, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. So any person, again, it's not about somebody telling us or somebody being divinely ordained to tell us something. It's an individual expression. And then personal power. I believe in the control of conditions, the power of this mind. And self-determination. I believe in my own soul, my own spirit, and my own destiny, for I understand that my life is God. That is beautiful, right? That is empowering, this idea, this personal God, that we have personal empowerment, that we have personal freedom, that we have self-determination. And so this is what people began to really be drawn to, these ideas. And this was a sense of freedom. And so it was very law-based. We talk about the law that's impersonal. It doesn't care who you are or what you do. It works for everybody the same. It's very thought-based, mind-based. It's about individual responsibility and personal growth and intellectual ideas and spirituality. That oneness is about the individual unifying with the divine. It's about our experience of that divine, about individual healing, empowerment of our healing, about energy of force that we can use. Dr. Holmes said there's a power in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. Again, this is a very freeing statement at that time of that evolutionary spiral and that change. So the values of that are achievement and ambition and ingenuity and reason and optimism and human potential. These are all the ideas that were being explored at that time. And it's very important and very powerful that we offer that type of, that aspect of our teaching. And yet, if we know the spiral is moving and it doesn't stay still. And so Holmes says the spiral of life is upward. Evolution carries us forward. It seems to me that our evolution is a result of an unfolding consciousness of that which already is and needs but to be revealed to become a fact of everyday life. He said, we should remember that we have but started on an eternal ladder which ever spirals upward. And so as this spiral comes around, there's this sense of this collective idea that we're not alone, that it's not only just about our relationship with the divine, or our ability to create. It's all of a sudden, hey, if everything, is made of this divine stuff, that means you're made of that too, and that we are connected to each other. And so there's this new awakening that it's not just about me, it's about us. It's about the oneness that we have with each other. And Dr. Holmes, what's so beautiful is that on that same page that he writes about the freeing ourselves to this eternal reality is this beautiful poem. It says, "Peace be unto thee, stranger. Peace be unto thee, stranger. Enter and be not afraid. I have left the gate open, and you are welcome to my home. There is room in my house for all. I have swept the hearth, lighted the fire. The room is warm and cheerful, and you will find comfort and rest within. The table is laid, the fruits of life are spread before thee. The wine is here also, it sparkles in the light. I have set a chair for you where the sunbeams dance through the shade. Sit and rest and refresh you should. Eat of the fruit and drink the wine. All is yours, and you are welcome." That's a beautiful demonstration of this collective, empowered transformation, that we widen the circle and we open ourselves up to this action, that we can act to be of support and of service and of love to the collective us, this bigger circle. And this was expressed in our global vision statement, which I have to say that several years ago, I was feeling this frustration. I was feeling the frustration of feeling that we were kind of an insular community, that all we really cared about was our own individual healing, and I wasn't feeling like when I would talk about maybe we need to expand and go out in the world, that there was a lot of resistance to that. And then this beautiful global vision was created. And the first time I read it, I was like, oh, okay, I do fit, right? I do belong. That my teaching, my spiritual philosophy, my community, my home is moving along that evolutionary spiral as I am as well. Dr. Holmes talked about being open at the top and being humble to know that we don't have all the wisdom given to us all at once, that it unfolds. And so we have to be open to how does this look in our philosophy? How does this look in our life? And some of the most beautiful statements out of our global vision, we envision all people, all beings, all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of political and corporate and academic and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to future the emergent global consciousness. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. So this idea, as we evolve, is love-based, right? It's heart-based. It's about oneness is about the individual recognizing the interconnectedness, not only with the divine, but with all expressions of life. It's about collective healing, about being an expression of love and action in the world. And it's about embodied spirituality, right? And about the idea that this divine presence isn't just a cold, unfeeling law that we can, access and we can use, but it's a loving essence, a loving presence that can guide us and direct us. Dr. Holmes, in his book, Can We Talk to God, says, consider the spirit as a warm, pulsating, reciprocal thing. It presses against us. It flows through us. It is our intelligence. It's a great universal urge and surge. It is a warm, colorful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Know that there is something more than law, an intelligence to which we may come for inspiration, for guidance, for direction, a power responding to us, a presence pressing against us, an animation flowing through us, a light within us. So not only is there a power in the universe greater than we are, than we can use, there's a power in the universe greater than we are, and it can use us. It can move through us to create a greater and more beautiful society and world. And the values are kindness and empathy and justice and peace and ecological concerns and consensus and connection. And so what's so beautiful about this is that we already have both aspects of this, so that when people come into our philosophies and our idea that wherever they are on this spiral, we have something for them. We have something for everybody with this individual empowered with where we want to go in the world. And this is the next evolutionary of the spiral, which is a both and. It's not an either or. We don't have to pick or choose. It's a both and that we're making this evolutionary leap to what Spiral Dynamics calls the second tier. Because the first tier, all the things that we've been going through has been based on a fear. It's still been based on a sense of separation. And when we make that historic leap to the second tier, it's based on love. And when it's based on love, we know that that individual expression, that collective transformation is both valuable and useful, and we find our place in it. We find our place in where we are, and that we transcend wherever we've been and include it as we continue to evolve. And that's what our life is about, to transcend where we've been and to come back around that cycle and that circle to include it, to express it at a higher level. And so when I was at the Ministers Gallery, and we had this deep conversation, and we had, Blake, can you change the slide for me? So we created this altar. It's I'll show you a little closer up, but it's a pathway. And what we did is we had this long conversation about where we stood on this continuum in our teachings between individual empowerment and collective transformation, and really honoring where everybody stood on that continuum. And so people would go up, because this is a path, our foundation is the soil. Those are rocks, and there's soil. And those little rocks were collected by our our spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon's grandchildren. They went out and they picked some rocks, and there were some light-colored rocks and some dark-colored rocks. And so we talked about these two different colored rocks represented these two aspects of individual empowerment and collective transformation. And that when people went up, they picked the one that represented where they were in this moment of where they were expressing from, and then they picked up a rock from the other aspect to bless it, to bless those who were called to that expression. And they put it along the path. And you can, Blake, go ahead and change the next one. So you can see it, all the different colored rocks along the path. And as you saw, there was a slide. And go ahead and change, Blake. And this has these two aspects of our teaching. These lessons are dedicated to the truth which frees us from ourselves, sets us on the pathway of a new experience, which enables us to see through the midst to the eternal, changeless reality, the individual expression, collective peace be unto thee, stranger. All is yours, and you are welcome. And so all this is personal. It's about our larger organization, but it's about you, because you have that evolutionary spiral within you as well. And so that individual empowerment can be nurtured and loved through our practices of meditation and of treatment, of connecting with our source in our individual practice, which is kind of a vertical expression of our evolutionary process. And the collective expression can happen through our practices of forgiveness, of gratitude, of collective prayer, of the time that we spend every Sunday where we bless and express and heal whatever is happening in the world. And so this is a really exciting, beautiful time for us in our movement, and it's a beautiful, exciting time for each of us in our own evolutionary process, our own spiral of where we are. So let's just go within, and we're gonna do a little practice where you get to also place your rock along that path. Deep breath in. And just allow that breath to move down into the heart space. It's so good that we're able to be in this space together, to be able to have a spiritual practice of sitting together in this space, connecting with each other, and knowing the divine truth within. So as you think of where you are in your own spiral of life, whether you're exploring or expressing or healing this individual expression, this empowerment of the divine, or maybe you're somewhere along the spectrum of collective action, of spirit in action, of moving out into the world, being a contribution to the world, deepening into that truth of the divine that moves through not only you, but each other, and cherishing the human family, and cherishing life itself, cherishing all expressions of this field of energy that we know of as universe, as spirit, as God. And just imagine that you have an opportunity to place your stone along this path as a part of our community, as a part of this greater whole, a CSL, as part of humanity itself. So just in your mind's eye, just pick up whatever stone it is, what color, the lighter individual expression, darker one, collective. And again, it's a both and. It doesn't mean that we reject the other. It just means that in this very moment, this is where I stand, and this is what I'm expressing, and this is what is mine to be and do. And let us just bless that stone in the palm of your hand. And then just imagine that there's a quality that is connected to this stone, a quality of God that represents this expression of wherever you are on the spiral. It could be love or unity, oneness, health, wealth, wholeness, joy. And whatever that is, just imagine that fills you up, this energy of whatever that quality is, just fills you up. And then like a stone dropped into a still lake, that quality ripples out into this room. And just imagine that it touches each person that's sitting here today. And if you're in this room and you were having a hard time finding a quality, just know that this is the time to just breathe it in, because that quality of the divine that can lift you up is in this room. Somebody else is knowing it. Somebody else is holding it. And because we are connected, you can experience this too. And now imagine this energy moving out beyond this room, over this beautiful campus, to the good work that Ark of Loudon does. And it ripples out in the state of Virginia, the neighboring states, the district. Let us linger over Washington, D.C., the place where our government resides, and just know that these qualities that we hold within ourselves, that we're rippling out, ripple into the halls of Congress and places where the good of the nation is being decided. Knowing that each person is lifted up in their own way to express for the collective good, for all of us, and for the world. Let us expand to our country, and there may be a place within our country that you feel is a need of this quality, need of what it is that we can know for those who need to be lifted up in this moment. And let us expand that energy around the world, our beautiful globe. And as we allow that ripple to continue out into the universe, we breathe back ourselves into this room, breathing down into our hearts, breathing down into our feet. And just be mindful of that stone that you still hold. And notice that the stone that you didn't pick is a valuable and worthy expression of our teaching. And so allow yourself to pick up the other stone as well. And imagine yourself placing those stones in this pathway, in this walkway, which is our spiritual teaching, which is our community. Blessing all aspects, blessing wherever anybody is on their path, blessing what is yours to do, what is ours to do as a community, what is ours to do as the larger CSL. Blessing it. I recognize the divine truth in this process that there is an essence, which is the energy of life, of love, of universal presence that moves through all things, that moves through me. I am a perfect divine expression of that one life, that one law, that one God, universal energy. And because I know this truth for myself, that I am aligned with this power and this presence that is within me, I'm able to know the same truth for each person sitting in this room or hearing the sound of my voice, knowing that divine presence is expressing perfectly and beautifully for each person as well. So I know that there is an expression of this continuum, of this universal oneness spiral that is being lifted up and blessed by each expression of people here today. And I know that this is for the highest and best for each of us and for our world. I await with joyous anticipation to see how it ripples out from us in this place out into our world, lifting us up in light and love and lifting up the world. It's with this joyous anticipation that I am grateful for that law that does make it so. And I release my word into that law, knowing that it is already done. And with joy and thanksgiving, we know this together by saying, and so it is. So we let it be. And Patty and Brent are going to sing for us, or sing and play for us.